So today we're looking at this really fascinating mix of texts. We've got these readings centuries apart, all touching on ideas of, well, unity, gathering people together.
Right. And also these key moments, these decisions that just ripple outwards, don't they? Big consequences.
Exactly. So we have some pieces from Ezekiel, Jeremiah, Old Testament prophecies, and then a really pivotal bit from the Gospel of John.
Yeah.
Our plan is to kind of unpack these, see what they reveal about community, leadership, how individual actions fit into a bigger picture. Maybe start with Ezekiel.
Okay, yeah. Ezekiel gives us this incredibly powerful vision. It's about restoration for the Israelites. And the scale is just huge. It's like God himself pulling people back from all these different nations where they've been scattered.
Bringing them back home to their own land.
Precisely. And it's not just geography, is it?
No, it feels deeper. The text says they'll become one nation, finally ending that split, the two kingdoms.
That division between Israel and Judah, yeah. And this figure, this one king, David, is named specifically. It's a really potent symbol.
Going back to a unified past, almost an idealized one.
It definitely evokes that idea. But Ezekiel, he pushes beyond just the political side. There's a big emphasis on spiritual cleansing.
Right, getting rid of idols, past mistakes.
Exactly, a kind of inner renewal alongside the physical return, becoming God's people in a much more profound way.
That spiritual part seems crucial. Like true unity needs more than just borders. It needs shared belief, shared practice.
Absolutely. And this king, David, his role isn't just power. It's tied directly to following God's laws, God's judgments.
So leadership rooted in something divine. And this promise, dwelling in the land forever. Not just them, but their descendants too. That feels very significant. What's that permanence about?
It speaks to, I think, the depth of the promise. It's not temporary. Ezekiel uses terms like covenant of peace, an eternal covenant.
Not just political deals that can be broken.
No, this is foundational, enduring. And the symbol of that is God's sanctuary, his temple, being established right there among them forever. God's presence guaranteed.
And that presence, it's not just for them, is it? Ezekiel seems to suggest it sends a message outwards.
It does. The climax is really that other nations will see this, see the sanctuary, and recognize that God has set Israel apart, sanctified them.
So this restored nation becomes a kind of testament to the world.
A living testament to God's power and faithfulness, yeah. So it's this full picture. Return, unity, spiritual renewal, and even international recognition.
Okay, quite a vision. Now, shifting slightly to Jeremiah, his psalm. It echoes some themes, but maybe feels different, more emotional.
Yeah, Jeremiah's piece is almost like a lyrical response. It's a call to the nations, telling them to listen, God is gathering the scattered people of Israel.
And the image he uses, God is the shepherd.
That's striking, isn't it? The same shepherd who scattered the flock is now gathering them back and guarding them. It feels very personal, very tender.
That idea of scattering and gathering, it suggests maybe even the scattering had a purpose, or that restoration was always the end goal.
It implies that, yes, that even in dispersal, the ultimate plan was reunion. And Jeremiah talks about God ransoming Jacob, rescuing them from someone stronger.
So it wasn't easy. There was a struggle, a liberation needed.
Definitely a sense of deliverance. And then the joy. The description of returning to Zion is so vibrant.
You can almost see it. The lavish gifts, the wheat, wine, oil, livestock.
It's not just survival, it's abundance, real flourishing.
That image, like a well-watered garden, they will sorrow no more.
Wow, that's powerful. After exile, that must have resonated deeply.
Immensely hopeful. And notice who's rejoicing.
It says young women dancing, young men, the elders, everyone.
Exactly. It's universal joy. Mourning turned completely into gladness. Comfort after all the trouble. It's a healing of the whole community.
So Ezekiel and Jeremiah, they both paint these incredibly positive pictures. Gathered, unified, restored, prosperous, close to God.
Very hopeful visions, yes. But then we turn to the Gospel of John, and we see a very different kind of gathering happening, driven by something else entirely.
Yes, the scene in John is tense. Jesus has been performing miracles, signs, and the reaction is split.
Some people start believing in him, which is a kind of gathering, I suppose, a gathering of faith.
In a way, yes. But others, crucially, they don't just keep it to themselves. They go straight to the authorities, the Pharisees.
And that sets things in motion. Fear, political calculation.
That's right. This initial split, belief versus reporting to authority, it tells you something about how people respond to the new, the unexpected.
So the chief priests and Pharisees call a meeting, a council.
The Sanhedrin, likely.
And their worry, it's not really theological debate, is it? It sounds much more practical, almost panicked.
Their fear is about the Romans. They say if everyone believes in him, the Romans will come and suppress the holy place and our nation.
Maintain the status quo, keep the peace with Rome, however fragile it is. That seems to be the priority.
Absolutely. Jesus' popularity is seen as a direct threat to stability. And this is where Caiaphas, the high priest that year, steps in.
Ah, yes, with that very famous or infamous statement.
It's incredibly pragmatic on one level, but John, the narrator, tells us there's more to it. What's your take on Caiaphas' motivation there?
Well, he says, it is better for one man to die for the people than for the whole nation to perish. It sounds like cold, hard politics. Sacrifice one guy to save the many, or what they perceive as saving the many.
A utilitarian calculation, essentially, protecting national security as he sees it.
But then John adds that layer.
Right, the narrator interprets it. He says Caiaphas wasn't just giving his political opinion. Because he was high priest, he was actually unknowingly prophesying.
Prophesying, how so?
That Jesus was destined to die, yes, for the Jewish nation, but also to gather together into one the scattered children of God.
Wow. So an unintended prophecy. The political move serves a deeper divine purpose.
That's the interpretation John gives us. This act, meant to stop disruption and preserve one kind of unity, becomes the very mechanism for a completely different kind of gathering. A spiritual gathering that goes way beyond national lines. It's quite a twist.
A stunning twist. Human fear and politics woven into this larger plan. The decision made to stop a scattering actually causes a gathering, just not the one they expected.
It really underscores how actions can have unforeseen consequences, how human motives, even fearful or self-serving ones, can fit into a narrative they don't understand at the time.
So the council makes the decision.
Yes, the resolution is made. Jesus must be put to death.
And the immediate result?
Jesus withdraws. He goes to a town called Ephraim with his disciples, lies low for a bit.
The Passover is coming up, a huge gathering time in Jerusalem.
Exactly. So there's this tension building. People are arriving in Jerusalem for the festival, and they're looking for Jesus, wondering, will he show up? Will he dare?
While the authorities are also looking for him, but for a different reason.
Right. They put out an order. Anyone who knows where he is must report it so they can arrest him.
So you have this convergence on Jerusalem. People gathering for the Passover, remembering their liberation, but also this gathering of opposition, of intent against Jesus. What a contrast.
It really highlights how complex gathering can be. Passover should unify, right? Shared history, shared identity. But right there, within that context, another kind of gathering is happening, one driven by fear, aimed at control. It shows how human motives can twist things, creating division even during unifying moments.
Okay, so pulling these threads together, we have Ezekiel and Jeremiah with these grand, hopeful visions of a united, restored Israel. Then John shows us this reaction driven by fear, politics, which ironically kickstarts a different sort of gathering. What's the main tension you see when you hold these side by side?
For me, it's the paradox of human intention versus, well, maybe divine outcome. Caiaphas and the council acted to preserve their idea of unity, national stability.
To stop the nation perishing, as he put it.
Exactly, but that very action, according to John's gospel, becomes the key event that enables a totally different unity, a spiritual one, open to anyone, Jew or Gentile, who believes. It just makes you think about how our sometimes very short-sighted actions can play into a much bigger story we don't see.
That's a fascinating point. Unintended consequences and maybe human actions serving a larger purpose, even when the motives aren't pure. So thinking about these texts, what does this say about national identity versus spiritual identity? Are they always the same thing?
These texts really suggest they can be in tension. The leadership in John clearly prioritized the nation, the political entity, the religious structures as they stood. They saw Jesus as a threat to that.
Even though he's inspiring spiritual belief, a different kind of connection.
Right. Ezekiel and Jeremiah envision a future where the national and spiritual are perfectly aligned, restored together. But John shows us a moment where perceived national interest clashes directly with a new spiritual movement. It forces the question, doesn't it? What truly defines a community? Is it borders, ethnicity, or shared faith and values?
Definitely gives us a lot to chew on. Unity, gathering, motive, consequences. And that final point from John, that Caiaphas' words had this deeper meaning, gathering the scattered children of God. How should we see the events in the gospel then? Is it fulfilling that Old Testament vision of unity, or is it something else entirely? diverging from it.
It's complex. I mean, on the surface, the crucifixion looks like the ultimate failure, the ultimate scattering, right? The opposite of Ezekiel's vision.
Yeah, it seems like the end of hope for that kind of restoration.
But John's interpretation flips that. It suggests this death, this sacrifice, is precisely the means for a new kind of gathering, a spiritual one, based on faith in Jesus, that breaks down the old barriers. It goes beyond just the nation of Israel.